under fading skies. Tattered flags waving dreams in our eyes. The crowds roar like a storm on the wind. We're the underdogs fighting again.
What's going on, everyone? Good morning, and welcome to Stateside Footy. And it is the Saturday morning Spurs conversation, as we do every single Saturday. Now that the summer is upon us and the transfer window will be reopening again, as per to the title of the show, Thomas Frank is moving quickly, and it seems, and it would appear that the ambition is matching the intentions. In which I like to see. Before we get into everything, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button because Stateside Footy is on a race to 1,000 subs. And at that point, we can start doing memberships and all that good stuff as we prepare for guests and stuff like that for, membership shows and all that good stuff. But also, the 1,000th sub will be getting a very special gift from me to you. And to learn more about that, just straight up ask me what I have in mind because I'm a good guy. I like to take care of people. All right. So as the title states that Thomas Frank is moving quickly, and he certainly is moving quickly. I love it. And this is something that I would think that every Spurs fan should be a little bit excited about, because one of the things that I think we all wanted to know was two things, right? What was just the entire intention of the appointment of Thomas Frank? Was this going to be a situation where, because Thomas Frank had been, used to operating with smaller budgets in the Premier League, that this was going to be a sign where Tottenham was going to continue with a youth movement, or we were going to see a little bit more ambition when it came to experienced players. And it looks like there's a little bit of both. And I think that should be a little encouraging. Yeah, we're going to get into it in just 1 second, but we do have a chat, and it's Mr. Dan Davenport. Hey, Steve, are you doing any watch-alongs for the FIFA Club World Cup tournament? I have entered a competition to win 2 tickets to the final. The answer is yes. Tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern, the first watch-along for the FIFA Club World Cup will be Inter Miami versus Al Ahly. Of course, Inter Miami is in Major League Soccer, and Al Ahly is sitting atop of the Egyptian Premier League. So that will be the first of many watch-alongs at the 2025 FIFA Club World Cup, as well as MLS live streams and, of course, Gold Cup competitions featuring the U.S. men's national team. So this summer is absolutely going to pop on Stateside Footy. So again, like and subscribe, all that good stuff. All right, so let's get into it right away. And we will start with Niccolo Pisilli, the 20-year-old midfielder from AC Roma. Last year, I think he had 41 appearances. I think it was if I'm stand correctly, I think it was 4 goals, 3 assists, and 41 appearances last year for AC Roma. He is a 20-year-old box-to-box midfielder who can play a little bit of the 10, but for the most part, he is an 8. He just got finished with his first caps with the Italian senior national team, and right now I think he's going to be captaining the U23s for Italy. And at the end of said competition, he will be a member of the Tottenham Hotspur. Now, some reports are saying that they are looking to finalize. From what I'm hearing, the deal is done, and he will be joining Tottenham Hotspur at the end of his international competition, which would bring some stability to the 8 position. Now, what we don't know yet is what primary tactics that Thomas Frank is going to use. Is it going to be more of a 4-2-3-1 with a double pivot of 6s, or is it going to be a 6 with a high roaming 8? That has yet, or is it going to be like a 3-5-2? We still have yet to find out, because obviously the first preseason games have yet to get underway. So one of the things that I like about this, and I think I mentioned this a couple days ago with James, was that the fluidity of what Ange Postecoglou had to deal with as a head coach, and that was players that were, generally speaking, playing out of position. I mentioned Archie Gray, who is a 6, traditionally developed as a 6, but was playing at the right back position, did that with Leeds, and of course he played center back this last season. Did not really get a lot of run out in his natural position. Lucas Bergvall, who is more of a box-to-box, but did play some 10, did play some 8, played a lot of 6. And of course, even Betancourt, who both manned the 6 and the 8 positions last year. And on the forward line, left-footed Wilson Odegaard played a lot on the right side. Matisse Tell, who's a natural striker, was playing out on the left side. Even Richarlison, who obviously is a striker, played on the left side as the season was waning. So there was a lot of fluidity when it came to certain positions. And one of the things that really hurt this team down the stretch was the fact that we were absolutely gutted through the entire midfield. There were multiple games where it just seems like the fluidity and the ease in which teams were just walking straight through Tottenham's midfield, was absolutely problematic. And so now there is at least, it depends on how you look at this, there is at least some stability at that position. And one of the things that I'm actually looking forward to is Thomas Frank actually making sure that some of these young guys are going to be playing at the position that is going to meet the strengths of what they have to offer to the first team. So Niccolo Pisilli, very good young 20-year-old box-to-box. And word is, from what I'm hearing, that the deal is worth upwards of $2 million a season on a 5-year deal. And that is absolutely good news, because his development will continue at the Premier League level. And one of the things I love about is the guts, man. The guts of what he's absolutely trying to do here, making a jump from the Italian Serie A, which is not a bad league, more of a defensive league, to the Premier League, which is actually more of a front foot forward attacking league. A lot of good defenders, and I just love the balls on this kid. Unfazed, unwilling to be a little bit worried about making that jump a little too early. For me, I don't know. I just appreciate the guts. In the chat now is Audio Artisan. What's up, man? Hope you're having a good Saturday afternoon. All right. So as it comes to the transfer market, so it looks like Tottenham, are at least on one side, continuing to go down the channel of youth, which I actually have no problem with. But also we do have to get into Bryan Mbeumo, because there is some news that is worth talking about this morning. And Audio, we're going to get into you in just 1 second, man, because we're going to talk about that as well too. Bryan Mbeumo, there were a few things that are worth talking about when it comes to Bryan Mbeumo. Number one, Newcastle is off the table. I think one of the things that Newcastle was trying to do was trying to float a little under the radar when it came to Bryan Mbeumo. One of the things that they were looking to do was try to be aggressive-ish, knowing that Tottenham and knowing that Manchester United were going to be the two teams that are going to be jockeying for position. But they thought that with the team that was intact, that it would be somewhat impressive that he can jump right into that forward line at Newcastle and pick up where he left off. And for those that haven't been paying attention, Bryan Mbeumo's fresh off a 20-goal season, which is nothing to sneeze at. But he has said absolutely no to Newcastle, which leaves Tottenham and Manchester United. And of course, Manchester United is his number one choice. And of course, there is the part that he is a Manchester United supporter. That's not lost on anybody. But it's also the wages. Bryan Mbeumo, from what I've been told, is looking for wages that are at the £200,000 a week, upwards of 220. He believes that he is worth that. And where Manchester United right now is sitting, I believe it is told that their salary offer is between £150,000 a week, upwards of 175. And with the add-ons and some of these other things, these elevators in the contract, it could go up as high as £200 a week. And Tottenham right now is, especially with bonuses, right now will top out at about 140,000 pounds a week. And obviously, you can see the discrepancy of about 60,000 pounds on the high end. Now, what I'm going to say might be a little harsh because Tottenham have been able to get players in at the right price and with the price that they feel is going to be a competitive market value. One of the things that has to happen is they have to be able, in isolation, to look at certain players and say, you know what, it's worth it. It's going to be worth it in the short term and also in the long term. And when you think about how contracts are structured in global football, a lot of these deals are, I guess you can use the term back end loaded a little bit, but there's also a lot of accounting write-offs where first and foremost wages, can be deflated when it comes to cash losses and some of these other things. And so from that standpoint, even having a player on wages that are approaching 200,000 pounds can be worked down. So you're not necessarily showing cash losses. But as Audio Artisan puts it right here, the wages for Werner and Tell, possibly Romero too, will more than cover it 100%, right? There's going to be players leaving that are going to be able to make up the differences. Where that being said, it's not going to be what's the word I'm looking for? It's not going to be a impediment for them having their wage percentages move up if they were in a position where they couldn't get anybody to take some of their other players away. Quickly, let's go to Audio Artisan. I'm interested to see Frank use a back three with wingbacks. I am too, actually. Quite honestly, I don't have a problem with the 3-5-2. Depends on who is going to be deployed in that midfield too. Is it going to be a 10-6 with two wingbacks? The combinations of how that midfield diamond's going to shake up, especially with two at the top. Now, the question is that going to be an inside forward and a striker? Is it going to be a 10 and a 10 and a striker with a 6 and an 8? You know what I mean? Like the combinations are going to be interesting, but I do believe you're going to see a lot of 3-back systems. And I actually think we have the horses in the back that would actually make the 3 center backs unbelievably dangerous, because I don't believe that Cudi Romero is going anywhere. Dan Davenport says, could you see us going for Ivan Toney? No, I don't at all. And the reason why is Ivan Toney right now is just on unbelievable wages in the Saudi Pro League. And they would have to take a reduced transfer fee, and also Ivan Toney would have to take a pay decrease to come back to the Premier League. Now, if he wants to do that, fair enough. I would probably assume there's going to be other suitors if he's willing to take a pay cut just to get back into a better league. But as of right now, I have not heard anything regarding Ivan Toney coming back to the Premier League, let alone Tottenham. But I have heard that he does not want to be in the Saudi Pro League anymore, and that is nothing new from a lot of players over there. We've heard that Cristiano Ronaldo wants to finish his career elsewhere. The name I was looking for yesterday was Karim Benzema, the former Olympic Lyon youth standout that went to Real Madrid. He wants out. What's his ass? Jordan Henderson got out after one season in the Saudi Pro League. So the reality is a lot of those guys took the money, stayed for a couple of years, and realized that not only is the play in the Saudi Pro League, dog crap, but also it really affects their international careers as well too. Let's see. We have Simon Cohen. We need to make some signings now. We definitely will, Simon. Transfer window reopens Monday. Yep. We're looking forward to it. And what about Jan Duran? I would love to have him. I think Jan Duran is night and day better than Ivan Toney. I was shocked when he made that move. I understand why he did it. I mean, he's Colombian. He's, he comes from relative poverty in Colombia. And when there's an opportunity to make just unbelievable money, you're going to jump at it. Granted, he's in his prime too. That was actually the surprising part, that he did it in his prime. But that being said, the interesting thing about Bryan Mbeumo is that if Tottenham were willing to come up to about 160 from like 140, if they added an extra 25K per week, it probably gets the job done, right? Because when you look at escalators and contracts, the potential, the potential to make more on your weekly wage, especially if it's tied to goals or performance, when it comes to, performance, the ability, meeting a certain benchmark, whether it's goals, whether it's assists, whether it's minutes, the ability to, the ability to make more. I think that would put it over the top. There's familiarity with Thomas Frank, and I would probably assume that he would not have a problem coming to Tottenham Hotspur, but that money has to be right. And this is the thing that I think fans have to understand, is that number one, players want to be respected, right? And so when you hear that term respect, what does that mean? Well, it means money. They want their wages to reflect what they perceive as where their skill set is at the moment, right? And of course, Bryan Mbeumo, I don't think a lot of people were aware that he was coming off a 20-goal season, because Brentford is Brentford. I think they finished 12th or 13th this year, and he quietly went about his business. But that being said, he was a silent assassin all season long. Had a 20-goal season, without really a lot of people noticing. And you put him on the right side in a Tottenham attack, and all of a sudden it drastically changes things. I still believe that the front three needs massive uphaul. It needs a massive improvement, especially if they're going to accept any type of wage. If they're going to accept any type of transfer deal for Sonny, there's going to be a need to upgrade on the left side as well too. And I think that's where Matías Cunha possibly could have came into play, but obviously he's off the table. Simon Cohen says, just get Eze. Yeah, I would love to have him. That would be a very interesting signing if they went after Eberechi Eze, and understanding that he's already kind of playing in a 3-back system with Crystal Palace, and the setup in a 3-4-2-1 or a 3-4. Was a 3-5-2? Yeah, that would just be unbelievable if Eberechi Eze was wearing a Tottenham shirt. But that being said, One of the things that I wanted to talk about this morning was the overall transfer strategy with a guy like Thomas Frank in place. And I look around the Premier League and I see what continuous successful clubs are doing with their academies, what they're, taking strategic gambles, and where they're currently in a position where they're going to have continuous success, not just in the Premier League, but also in the Champions League too, and why Tottenham are miles off of it right now. I want to start by saying that I do believe that Tottenham fans overrate their players. I really do. When I hear fans talk about, James Maddison and some of these other players, I kind of have to take a step back, and I'm the type of guy that looks at things for what they are. I don't get too high, I don't get too low. I try to remove emotion out of it. And when I look at this team, I don't necessarily think we're a team that is close to the top six. I just don't see it. I would love to kid myself and think that this team is somewhere in that place. So let's go ahead and take Liverpool. Let's go ahead and take Man City and Arsenal out of the equation, because we're nowhere near those three. And what's left is Newcastle, Aston Villa, West Ham. Let me pull this up real quick. And last night was an interesting conversation when I was on Spurs Diehards TTID. And the question was just how far away from the top of the pack are we realistically? And again, you take away Liverpool, Arsenal, and Man City, it leaves you with Chelsea, Newcastle, Villa, Forest, Brighton, maybe West Ham. And then you have what? Bournemouth, Brentford, Fulham, Everton, United, Wolves. How, realistically, how far are we away from the top three? And me personally, I think Villa is a better team. I think they have better talent, and I think they're better coached. I think they're far more organized than we are at the moment. I think Newcastle is very much a better team than we are today right now. Again, very organized, better coached, far more stable. They have a plan, and they're going to consistently get better. Tottenham is in a weird spot. Now, one of the things that help is the fact that Paratici is going to be back, which is going to help stabilize that front office. They have a new president in Vinay, and now they're probably going to have a new chairman with Charrington, which I think is going to help, because there's going to be a new direction. There's going to be a new voice, which is something that is badly needed with this club. Now, whether or not Daniel Levy is going to be a part of this equation, that has yet to materialize. But it sounds like the Joe Lewis Trust is putting pressure on Levy to step aside or just to remove him altogether, and allowing football people to make the decisions and staying out of the way, which is probably the best thing that, outside of a complete takeover, this is probably the second best thing that could have done. Because one of the things that Spurs fans have been annoyed was, the handling of the football operations of Daniel Levy and the lack of ambition in some of these things that, we can talk on and on and on ad nauseum. But the reality is there is going to be a new leadership. And I'm actually all for it. Because one of the things that a chairman has to do is understand that the best thing for him to do is just stay the hell out of the way. Let Vinny, let Paratici, and let Thomas Frank do the jobs that they were brought in to do, and let the chips fall where they may when it comes to the football pitch. But also making sure that you give them just enough resources where they can actually build, put the building blocks in place for them to actually do what's actually required to them, which is chase the top half of the Premier League. make a cup run, be competitive in the Champions League, and make sure there's consistency year after year after year. Now, mind you, the end goal is trophies, and I'm not lost on the fact that there's a lot of people that don't think the League Cup, the FA Cup are worthy trophies. Finishing top four. Finishing top four is not a trophy. All these other things, right? The two things that matter the most are the Premier League and the Champions League. And I would agree. I would definitely agree. That's where the money's at, right? That's where the sustainability with sponsorship revenue and all the drivers that allow teams to be able to stay at the top. That's the difference between a team like Liverpool and a team like Wolves, because they actually have an ownership group that recognizes what the revenue drivers are, and they make the most of it. Last year was kind of an interesting thing because Liverpool really didn't spend last offseason and still managed to win the Premier League. And now you've seen exactly what they've done this offseason, because they just said, listen, man, there's nobody really available that's going to help us achieve our goals. We feel like in place we have a team that's worthy enough to win it, and they did it. Now they bring in Jeremy Frimpong. Now they bring in Florian Wirtz, and it looks like this team is going to run away with the Premier League again. And they use the cups as a way to rotate and being able to give some of their young players far more playing time. It gives them a look at them to see if these young players are going to be able to help them when it actually matters as the season progresses and as their Champions League campaign comes on. And those teams at the top of the Premier League, the only thing that they care about is Premier League titles and Champions League titles. That is it. And we saw what happened with Man City this year, where the only last vestiges was the FA Cup, and you heard from a lot of Man City supporters saying, "Yeah, like it doesn't necessarily mean much, but hey, man, at least it's something." That lets you know exactly the mentality of what winners think. But right now, we're not there as a team. We are nowhere near that type of mentality. And that's why I always tell Spurs fans to rein it in, man. Rein it in a little bit and understand exactly where we are. Yes, I believe last season was an aberration, and I don't think we were as bad as our 17th position. But that being said, a lot of what happened last year was a direct result of not being able to give a manager the proper resources. And I said at the beginning of last season that things had to break right for us to avoid disaster. And of course, it broke wrong. It broke very wrong. Let's see, David Clark. Bromley with easy deal is that Palace won 100% of the 60 million up front. I'm not surprised to hear that at all. Tottenham are pressing hard to sign Jan Bissek. Inter Milan chief executive Piero Asolo was in London last week for talks to sell the center back. That would be a very good addition. Very good addition. Best for us is 6th or 8th next season. That's where I have him at right now as well too, but Christopher. David Clark, I'm Madison's biggest fan, as you probably know. I know he isn't world class, but unless a club structures a team to get the best out of him, then you might as well sell him on so he can shine elsewhere. Yeah, well, I have no problem making that discussion either as well too, David. James Madison to me is somebody that for large stretches of last season, I just thought he was unmotivated at times. I thought he took it to heart when he got consistently pulled from games at the 70th minute, like in crunch times, whether we were down a goal chasing one or we were, we were even and we were looking for that go-ahead goal. And Ange Postecoglou routinely took him out when it mattered the most. And I think that spoke volumes. So I think there were certain times where James Madison just was unmotivated in certain matches. And for me, it actually kind of pissed me off a little bit because it's like when you pick and choose based on emotion, when you want to show up, you're not just hurting yourself, you're also hurting your team. I think that was 100% clear last season. And that being said, I don't dislike James Madison, but that being said, if there's a real offer on the table for him, and we feel like we can do better at that position, I would be open to moving James Madison. Artie Watterson, I dislike the guy as a person, but I think Harvey Elliott could do a job for us. Young English talent with limited game time at Liverpool. can play various positions. I think it's worth a cheeky bid. I also agree as well too, but the question is whether Liverpool would ever sell a player to Spurs. I highly doubt it. Trust me, if Easy comes to Spurs, and he's surrounded by the same average players, and he wants to see the club. I don't know, man. I don't know, right? Because that's the interesting thing. Because I would probably assume that we are going to be active in the transfer market. So when it comes to midfield construction and when it comes to the attacking third, I think it's going to look a little different than how the season ended last year. Regardless if we get Matisse back, I think it's going to be just a little different. And RD Artisan finishes up with, did we ever find out who the mole was? Yeah, it was Scott Munn. 100% was Scott Munn. So for me, I have to be real. And that's the thing about this is, yes, I'm a Tottenham fan and I go back a few decades, but the reality is we're not where we were on stable ground under Pochettino. As a matter of fact, since Pochettino left, it has been, what's the word I'm looking for? Humiliating to see the downfall of this club, because this club was unwilling to take the necessary steps to ensure that consistency was going to be met. Unwilling to make sure that final piece to that puzzle was going to be in place. And it almost seemed at a lot of times that they were just throwing darts at a dartboard, hoping something was going to stick. And because of it, they paid the ultimate price when it came to places in the standings, consistent Champions League appearances, but also, talent identification. Some of it was good, some of it was very good, and some of it was very piss poor. And I think what I like about what's happening this offseason is that is slowly, incrementally changing. And again, it almost feels like we have a new front office. And I think that leadership is going to be able to, understand exactly what the transfer budget is going to be what it's going to be like year in and year out, but also just being able to have the right people in place to say, hey, listen, man, I got your back. Thomas Frank, what is it that you're going to need? What is the player profile that you're looking for that's going to suit what you're trying to accomplish? Let's go ahead and just get these players through the door. Now granted, are they going to be like 100 million pound players? Probably not, but anywhere between 65 and 85 million pound players, that's actually a pretty good player. And who knows how many of those are going to come through the door. But that being said, I like the fact that right now, when you look at what they're chasing experience, but they're also chasing youth as well too. So they're combining both. And I like that approach. But the reality is we still don't know what Tottenham's end game is. Is it still about revenue and profit? Is that the end game for Tottenham Hotspur? That's what I want to know. Is this restructuring of the front office a sign that they're going to be ambitious to a point, or is this going to be the same old thing? Well, here are our levels, and we're not going to go above any of these. That's still going to be in place, so we're going to have to work with inside, a confined budget in order to make this work. Okay, that's something we don't know yet. But that being said, when I look at what successful teams do, not just in the Premier League but also around the world, understand that they use their academies as a means of profit. That's exactly how it's done. Yes, there are outlier players that do happen to make the transition to the first team and into the starting 11, but for the most part, if you line 10 prospects up, 9 of them are going to be out the door. That's why teams employ huge loan armies, because it's just a driver of profit, right? And so when I look at this team, and I see the Will Lancashires of the world, and I see the Jamie Donnelly's coming back off of loan, the Josh Keelys of the world, and some of these players that really don't necessarily have a future with Spurs. And I understand there's some emotional attachment to some of these players when it comes to this fan base. But that being said, let me ask you a very important question. What's more important to you? The development of an academy player that probably won't hit your starting 11 for 4 or 5 years, or the ability, if he's a good prospect, the availability to get anywhere between 15 to 20 million pounds for him, that allows you to go out and get an Ever Eze. That allows you to go out there and actually get a target that, they've wanted for a couple seasons, that are going to help this team not only be competitive in the cups, but also being able to get up into that upper echelon of the table that allows us to not only compete for the league, but also compete in the Champions League as well, too. That's the end game, right? Tottenham wants to be where Liverpool, Arsenal, and Manchester City already are. They want to be that team that continuously tries to win the league year in and year out. And, when they make a signing, they want to do it with intention. For me, that's the biggest problem. It's like, the signings that they make, like last year was funny. They bring in Dominic Solanke because, that's, I guess, the only guy that was affordable at the time, but that wasn't a move with intention. It really wasn't. Christopher Inshaw, Fenerbahce are close to signing Yves Bissouma. Fenerbahce talks with Spurs are now at an advanced stage. The midfielder would move on an initial loan deal with an obligation. I don't hate it. David Clark, the extra incoming finance Levy was hoping for with the White Hart Lane NFL franchise, and it's not happening anytime soon because the NFL is expanding within the U.S. for 2 additional franchises. Yeah. And by the way, logistically speaking, it would be a disaster if the NFL team put a team in London. It would be disastrous. Just from the simple fact is that, NFL teams play 18 games a season now. And, I'll give you a good example, right? When you look at the United States on the map and you see just how far the coasts are from each other, like a flight from Seattle to New York is like 8 hours. Right. So that's just going on an East Coast swing. Right. So now imagine the teams in London. Imagine the travel restrictions that are going to be on a London-based franchise, right? Without having other European-based teams playing to ease some of that slack, that team would be worn out by week 6. It makes absolutely no sense, right? Teams that are traveling to London would hate it because of the jet lag and the inability to recover. The idea of having an NFL franchise in London is absolutely absurd. If the academy can't produce, you have to buy. But even if the academy can produce, you have to sell. 100% you have to sell. And then we have Adrian here. Good afternoon, Steve et al. Good afternoon. What's up, Adrian? Hope you're doing well. And big up Audio Artisan says, big up, Adrian. Yeah. And Adrian, if you want to jump on, man, you're more than welcome to, man. I wouldn't mind having you here. The reality, though, is that we have, as a club, we actually have to take a few steps in order to get to where I believe that this team is going to be consistently fighting for Premier League titles, and that's number one. The knowledge of knowing that you actually have a profit generating academy that not only you can move on loan, but you can ultimately sell, which is going to allow you the extra anywhere between 25 to 50 million every single offseason in order to bump up your transfer budget. That's number one. But also number two, you actually have to keep your good players around. This team cannot be that team anymore. Look at how good. I mean, I remember when Pochettino first came, and it was 2 straight summers when they sold Gareth Bale and Luka Modric right before Pochettino came in. And imagine if those two stayed around for at least 3 more years. With the signing of Sonny and a young Harry Kane, holy shnikes, man! How good that team would have been. How good that team could have been. And probably Leicester City doesn't win the Premier League in 2016 had Spurs kept those 2 players around. My point is, you can't stop. You have to stop getting rid of your best players. Period, point blank. And right now, I listen. Christian Romero, I understand. I understand the timing of his statements. I get it. But that being said, it still doesn't erase the fact that he's one of our best players, if not our best player. Period. I understand how some fans look at him, but the reality is he's got 2 years left on his deal. You don't have to sell him right now. Not only that, I don't think there's going to be teams lined up right now that are going to be able to afford him at the moment. But the reality is, if this team wants to be taken serious, you have to be able to keep your best players around for at least a good portion of their prime. If you are serious about it, that is something that you absolutely you have to draw a line in the sand and say, listen, man, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. And if that means you actually have to take a chance by potentially letting a contract go down and you lose them on a free, so be it, man. So be it. One of the things that you can't do is just be nice. I'm sorry, you can't be nice. You actually have to manage with ruthless pragmatism. I hate to say it, man. That's something that Spurs have failed completely, being pragmatic in certain areas. David Clark says, why has Levy hung on to academy players for 2 years and then put them on loan only to bring in another young player from abroad straight into the first team squad? Levy's treatment of them is disgusting. But that's the thing. It's like, because on paper they're better, right? Like the fact that Archie Gray got ran out at right back at Leeds makes him better than a potential Jed Spence. Bringing in Vuskovic is probably going to be better than Dorrington and the other guy who was out on loan this year, the other center back. Lucas Bergvall Lucas Bergvall on paper looks better because of his because of the fact that he came in for X amount of dollars and he had that first team run in the Swedish division. Yeah. Meanwhile, you have a lot of guys that were cutting their teeth on loan. But that being said, I still look at this as an opportunity to make money. Dane Scarlett, Jamie Donnelly, Josh Keeley, Dorrington, all of those guys, man, out the door. I think the value to the club is better with the cash than they do with the player. Just saying. Let's see. Dan Davenport, at the end of the day, big club like us finishing 17th is unacceptable. We are a top 6 club, so Ange had to go, sadly. Yeah. Listen, man. I think you guys know by now how much I respect Ange Postecoglou, and I hope he lands on his feet. And I thought Ange Postecoglou was the right appointment at the right time, just like I thought Jose Mourinho was the right appointment at the right time. But sadly, it just didn't work out, and I thought the way that he was treated when it came to player acquisitions was shambolic. I don't think he had the tools. And I also believe that he wasn't I don't think he was supported internally either, even though that Ange Postecoglou literally took bullets for those people. And I think that earned him a lot of respect that he would be willing to do it. But at the end of the day, when you make a decision that the Premier League is not as worthy as the Europa League, there's going to be consequences to it. And if you guys remember, back when all those guys came back from injury, it was like late January, early February. There was 10 to 13 matches still left in the Premier League, and that's 36 points still left on the table. Now they weren't going to win all of them, but if they were able to get 25 of those points, they probably finish somewhere in the 9th or 10th spot. And had there been a little bit more emphasis on the Premier League, and had he been able to do that and also win Europa League, he stays around. I 100% believe if he finished in 10th place and still won Europa, he's still around. You could excuse a 10th place finish with a trophy, but 17th, I don't think so. Let's see. Spurs diehards. Adrian says the fixture list is going to be released Wednesday at 9 a.m. UK time. Absolutely, and I'm looking forward to this as well too. And for those that are tuning in right now, On Spurs Diehards TTID, Adrian and his crew will go live to talk about the fixtures for the upcoming season. So that is going to be something worth tuning into. So make sure you head over to Spurs Diehards TTID and hit the like and subscribe button, because Adrian and Drew are just amazing, man. I love those guys. Audio Artisan says, I think Scarlett will be kept around. Only him and Austin, who are academy homegrown. I understand. There's going to be needs when it comes to homegrown players, because especially when it comes to the Champions League, there's only a certain amount of foreign players that you can have on your rosters. So a lot of homegrown players are going to be needed. But that being said, I do believe that now, correct me if I'm wrong when it comes to this, but my understanding is that if they were developed in England, it still counts as a homegrown. And I do believe there has to be some academy grown players as well too. But that being said, as long as they're English and they were brought up in an English academy, I still think they consider it homegrown. I could be wrong in that, but that's why I would like to see Mbeumo, maybe even Eberici Eze, because they probably would count as a homegrown as well too. Correct me if I'm wrong. Let me know in the chat. David Clark says, my point is yes. Then let those players leave because they have no future at Spurs. Donnelly is good enough to be a first-team squad player, but Spurs will see him shine another club and regret it. I don't know, man. I don't know. I do agree with you. I don't think he's got a future at Spurs. Just like Troy Parrott before him. Very good prospect, 100%. You can't deny that they were good prospects, but ultimately there was no future there. Troy Parrott gets sold, and I do believe Donnelly gets sold as well too. I don't think they're going to regret it, because this is actually just kind of a business transaction at the end of the day. And if it leads to a guy like Eberici Eze, I don't think they're going to regret it at all. Depends on who walks through that door. But that being said, I don't think right now Jamie Donnelly is a first-team player at the Premier League level. Not even for a team like not Southampton, but a team like Sunderland or a team like Leeds. I don't think he's a first-team starter. I would probably think that right now his level is probably at the Championship, maybe the French Ligue 1, maybe even the Dutch Eredivisie, but Premier League might be a stretch. I don't know. Adrian goes on to say, Mbeumo is considering his options now that Frank is our manager. Yeah, and that's what I'm hearing as well too. As a matter of fact, the only hang up right now, Adrian, is the fact that the Spurs wages are between 100 and, let me double check this real quick. They are between 130 and 140K pounds per week, where I believe that Manchester United is somewhere around 165. He's looking for 200 to 220. Now, I don't think he's that type of player, but that being said, there are certain things that you can do with escalators in his contract that will give him bonuses that will make up the difference on his yearly wage. Something that is going to reflect the fact that, yeah, you're right, he is a 20-goal scorer, so that has to be respected. But that being said, you can't lowball him to the point where you disrespect him. So I would probably assume that Thomas Frank is probably running point on this, which I like. And then, it's going to be that show of ambition and say, hey, listen, man, maybe he is 170, 180 pound player per week. The reality is they gave Timo Werner 165 pounds per week on a loan. So if they're going to do it for Timo Werner, they should have no problem doing it for Bryan Mbeumo. 100%. Let's see. We have Ron Vanayak. Good to see you, Ron. Make sure you hit your like and subscribe buttons. I think Sonny should stay for one more season, and that's the thing. I don't know, man. One of the things that I fear is that he becomes I don't want him to be a joke. You know what I mean? Because the last thing you want on this club is somebody to be a parody of himself, right? A guy that can't necessarily do it for 30 games anymore. And I also think it would possibly be an insult if he was like the first guy off the bench, that type of guy who is getting 20 to 30 minutes at the end of the game just because he can't go. He can't start anymore at this level. But that being said, also think of it this way, man, right? Because Gareth Bale and Luka Modric left, man. Harry Kane left. Christian Eriksen left. A lot of guys left because they just couldn't get over the top. Sonny stayed. Sonny was the one that committed to the club because he said his work was not, his work is not done yet, and he stayed. And that that image with him lifting up the Europa League trophy, he completed his mission. And if he wants to go make money, I have no problem with Sonny going to do that. He's earned the right to do it. The question is Sonny right now still able to start week in and week out at the Premier League level? And I think the answer is no. And at that point, you have to ask yourself, okay, cool. So if he can't, then why are you paying him the wages that you are if you're only getting 20 minutes at the end of a game? You really don't want those type of players on your bench. It's sad to say, like, that's the thing. I guess the question is do you believe that Sonny still has it? That's the question you have to ask. And if the answer is no, then if you can get 60 plus pounds in a transfer, you're going to have to accept it. Sad to say, but I think he's done exactly what he was meant to do. He was here and he helped us win a trophy, and that counts for something, and that has to be recognized. And he has to decide if his future is here or abroad. And if it is, you got to cash in. If you can get that type of transfer fee, man, you got to take it. You got to let go of him a year early before it's a year late. Adrian says that Spurs are linked with Niccolo Pisilli of Roma, the 21-year-old Cam. Similar to Bergvall, yeah, he's more of a box to box, but he does play Cam as well too. And the actual, from what I'm hearing, Adrian, the actual deal's done. He'll be joining Spurs on a 5-year deal at the completion of the U23s or the U21s. So I've heard the deal is upwards of $2 million a season. So that's looking like that's a done deal. And I like the fact that Pisilli's coming in because that dude's a stud. Let's see. Audio artisan, I think you have to do 3 years between 15 to 21 years of age in the same academy to be academy. Yeah, you do. Or 3 years in the country. Yeah, you're right. That's exactly right. Let's see. Pisilli smells of Paratici. Yeah, 100%. And I like it, man. The young Italians that have such a high ceiling, and you bring them to the Premier League and you hand them to a dude like Thomas Frank. The sky's the limits. That's why I'm excited for Lucas Bergvall as well too. So I guess the question that was answered yesterday on Spurs Diehards TTID with my guy Adrian and Drew. I guess the question was asked yesterday was, what would be considered a good first season for Thomas Frank? What would you consider a successful campaign year one? And I'm curious to see what you guys think as well too. To all 63 of you right now, and I have no idea what's going on X and who all listening, but I do want to thank you guys for all tuning in this morning. But I said that consistency for me is tantamount to success. Now, again, I understand, right? Because, if there's going to be some people that are going to say, hey, man, winning a cup. But that being said, those the domestic cups really aren't that good enough. But that being said, a top four is not a trophy, but we're not necessarily close to the top four. But also, we're not going to win the Champions League either. So, that's, to me, that kind of smells indifference to me. But that being said, when I look at this team right now, no transfers coming in as of yet. I look at it right now and I see a team that has a very good back five. Actually, I would probably go one over and say that they have the potential to be great. Now, of course, injuries do play a factor into this one. And last year, our left back, Destiny Udogie didn't have a preseason, got hurt again. Romero Van de Ven were out for long stretches of periods of time. And Vicario went out for a while too. The only guy that was steady was Pedro Porro. But that being said, you're going to be, I think that the injury history with some of those guys are going to be past, because I think Thomas Frank is going to be very pragmatic with the work rate of which he is going to deploy his defenders. I don't think you're going to see our line camped out at the at the halfway line, balls over the top, and they have to track back and make sprinted runs. I think those days are over. And I think that we're going to see a tactical system that is going to allow them to play to their strengths, where they're not necessarily going to have to use all of their energy. And so I think because of that, we're going to see less injuries on that back line. And I think that is our strength. That defensively, I think we're better than in the attack. And I think that depending on the direction in which we go in the midfield, because for me, if it's Madison, Bergvall, Betancourt, I definitely like that. I think that was down the stretch was one of our best midfield threes, and I think those guys playing together developed quite a bit of chemistry, and we weren't necessarily as weak through the center of the pitch as we were towards towards the tail end in the middle of the tail end of the Premier League campaign. Where the issue lies for me is in the attack, and again, I'll say it to the cows come home. Right now, we're just not good enough. We cannot consistently score goals right now because of the way that we were playing. It depended a lot on balls. We had our wingers camped at the touchline, and it was designed for balls to get pinged into the box to allow Dominic Solanke to check it in, and for a good portion of it, we just didn't have the service. And it's going to be, but under Thomas Frank, that's going to be a little bit more direct. I don't think, I highly doubt he's going to have his wingers being camped on the touchlines. I think Spurs are going to be far more direct this year. It's going to allow guys like Brendan Johnson to actually play with a little bit more flair. But that being said, that has to improve. That whole forward line has to improve if this team wants to smell the top six. And I would like to assume that Bryan Mbeumo, if they get him, would be the first domino to fall. I still think this team needs another striker. I think we can do better than Richarlison, even though Thomas Frank likes him. And we also need another left winger because listen, man, as much as you guys like Mikey Moore, he's not ready to carry an attack at the Premier League level. He's had some moments, yes, but me personally, I would rather see him on loan this upcoming season just for him to get some steady first team minutes. I don't think that that's going to happen with Spurs this season if he's allowed to sit on his bench. Plus, I think that's going to disrupt his development more than it's going to help. So there's going to be need for experience at the left wing side as well too. If that happens and Spurs do upgrade their front three with the defense intact, I can see them finishing anywhere between 6th and 8th. And that would be a very solid that would be a good solid first season because at least you're putting yourselves in a European spot. And I think that consistency in being in Europe is something that should be achieved, right? Regardless if it's the Europa League or Conference League, just the ability to be in Europe matters. Being able to compete in that competition is going to open up different revenue doors, which is something the Spurs want. But I think just from a continuity standpoint, you want to be consistent and you want to play in those. And especially if it's the Europa League, they just got done winning it. So, from that standpoint, there's going to be a lot of confidence within it. But that being said, for me, being competitive in the Premier League is first and foremost tantamount. And when I look at this team, they're not that far off, but they really are. And I think that for me, if they can improve that attack and, allow Thomas Frank to work with these players, I can possibly see on the high end a 6th place finish, which would be Europa League. And I still think that would be a very good finish for this team coming off the year that we just had. I also want to see a run to a final in one of the cups. I don't care which one, whether it's League Cup or whether it's the FA Cup. I don't care which one, but making a good conservative run to Wembley. I mean, if you lose it, you lose it. But that being said, I'd like to see them be aggressive in one of them. The thing that I like about it the most is the fact that when you look at Arsenal, Newcastle, Liverpool, a lot of these teams rotate in the early rounds of the cups because they're competing in the Champions League and they're competing for the league. And that's what they do. They use those early round cup matches to give some of those youngsters. So they're like, for me, there's no fear in getting one of those one of those teams prior to the quarterfinals, because you know exactly what's going to happen. They got a Champions League game right around the corner, so they're not going to be playing their starting 11. It's going to be a heavily rotated squad. So from that standpoint, I think this team is capable. We showed it this last year with the League Cup, man. We got to within 90 minutes of Wembley, right? They know how to navigate it, and they know how to get big wins in some of these cup competitions. And so that's what I want to see. I want to see whether it's League Cup, FA Cup, I don't care which one, get to a final at least, show some intent. And when it comes to the Champions League, if we can get to the first stages of the knockout rounds, I would be over the moon. I would be buzzing, because that, for me, that is a house of pain right there. The Champions League, very the best clubs in the world. But is it possible that they can finish in the top 8, or maybe even get to a playoff? To play into the knockout rounds? Yeah, I think they possibly could. And if they can get there, I think that would be, I would be absolutely buzzing. So for me, it's, 6th through 8th place in the league, make a run to a cup final, and at least get to the knockout rounds of the Champions League. And I think Thomas Frank had a successful season. The question is will the fans accept that? Because let's keep it honest, right? Thomas Frank is walking into a club that has massive expectations coming off a cup win, and so the expectation is that you're going to have to do something either equal to it or better, and I think that's unrealistic. I think it's very, very, very unrealistic. When you look at just where this team is now, like maybe my feelings change as we get into the Super Cup. And we'll know exactly what type of players this club brought in. So, check back with me when it comes to the Super Cup lead into that. Let's see. Christopher Inshaw says good run in cups and a top 8 finish. Yeah. Audio Artisan, I want to see improvement in the league. What does that mean to you? Now let me ask you guys this question, right? Let's say we win the FA Cup, but we finished 10th. Is that good enough? Would you take that? An FA Cup win, but they finished 9th or 10th? Do you think that would be a good first season? Back-to-back seasons with a trophy? What's improvement to you, Audio Artisan? Let's see. We have Snow Sniper Gaming says, forget the League Cup. The semifinal fixture is a joke. I don't like the 2 legs either, man. One game is enough. Right, you don't need to carry it up. But the reason why they do it is an opportunity to make money for both teams in a home and home 2-leg semifinal. I don't like it at all. Me personally, I like the old format of the FA Cup with the replay. That's what I like. Spurs had 8 fixtures in January last year. I guess they did. Let's see. FA Cup is easier given a favorable draw. I think it just depends, right? Let's see. Walking into a team that finished 17th, no comparison between Europa and Champions League. I wasn't trying to make one, man. Let's see. An Audio Artisan says no more than 12 league defeats. Interesting. I like that too, man. I think I'm kind of on your same page. But listen, man. As I recap this, I like the fact that they're showing ambition. I like the fact that they're trying to work on a few different fronts. Yes, they are still targeting good youth with high ceilings, but they're also targeting experienced players. I like the idea of Niccolo Pisilli. I like the idea of Bryan Mbeumo. I just think that for me, it would be a good start. It would be a good stepping stone too. Plus, if you can get a Bryan Mbeumo through the door, it actually will say. I think it ripples, has a rippling effect. Other players that may or may not have been considering Tottenham will look at that and say, "Oh, damn. Okay, so they're paying him. Fair enough, man." And I think I think that is going to be able to maybe turn some maybes into yeses. So it's going to be interesting as the transfer window opens back up again. So I'll tell you what, man, here's what's going to happen. So on THFC TWD, I don't know if there's going to be a news beat today. That's something that I'm going to have to get a hold of James to do, if there is going to be a news beat. But that being said, tonight on Stateside Footy, it is the Club World Cup watch along. Inter Miami versus Al Ali of the Egyptian Premier League, and that is going to kick off our coverage of the Club World Cup on Stateside Footy. But there's also going to be Gold Cup coverage for the U.S. men's national team, as well as the MLS live streams. So this summer on Stateside Footy, there's going to be a lot of good, good football, a lot of good live streams. So it's definitely going to be worth making sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons, because let me tell you, man, there's nothing better than soccer in the U.S., man. Just saying. So that's going to be tonight at 8 o'clock, which I believe is going to be midnight-ish in the UK. I don't know. Adrian's going to go on and says, Ange Postecoglou has been contacted over potential managerial turn to the Saudi Pro League, Al Ali. Yep, I heard that. And I don't necessarily know if that's a good move coming off a Tottenham appointment. But that being said, if they throw ridiculous money at him, I don't see why he says no. And Niall O'Connor, Frank will have credit in the bank just for securing Mbeumo over Man U, 100%. And again, that's going to send ripples out because, especially if they're able to get Mbeumo, and let's say that they come up off their 140 pound per week wage offer, and now it's up to like 165 plus add-ons, essentially paying them the same amount of money that they gave Timo Werner. I think that does that. And by the way, and again, I think it turns other targets that may or may not have been considering Tottenham. They look at that and say, oh, okay, now Tottenham's finally starting to pay. That's a place that I can consider, because not only do we have Champions League, but they're actually going to make it worth my while to come there. And of course, it's the London-based club. I 100% agree with you, Niall. All right, man, that's going to do it for us. So again, tonight is going to be the Club World Cup live stream, but definitely check out Stateside Footy for upcoming live streams as well too, when it comes to the Club World Cup and the Gold Cup as well too. And on THFC TWD, I believe Dermatron will return on Monday. Definitely make sure you do that, but also make sure you hit the like and subscribe button as well too, because we're on a march on Tottenham Hotspur Football Club till we die. We're on a march to 5K between now and the end of the 2025-2026 season, but also the memberships as well too, because we're going to be doing a lot of cool stuff when it comes to membership only shows, a lot of good guests. So make sure that you get your memberships, or if you want to gift memberships out, man, do what you got to do, man, because let me tell you, okay, between Stateside Footy and Tottenham Hotspur TWD, man, we break a lot of Spurs news. And we have been consistent with it throughout the course of the year, and we've been already consistent with it so far at the start of the transfer season. And, we have our contacts, man, and we get it right more often than we get it wrong. And we're definitely out in front of outlets like Sky Sports and some of these other things. So definitely pay attention, because we were the first to break Harry Kane going to Bayern Munich. We were the first that broke Ange Postecoglou, Arne Slot to Liverpool, Thomas Frank to Tottenham. We have a consistent track record of doing it. So understand that this is going to be the spot right here for all your Tottenham news, as well as watch-alongs as well too, as we progress in the summer. There's going to be a whole bunch of content. So definitely do yourself a favor and make sure you get your memberships, not just at Tottenham Hotspur Football Club till we die, but also on Stateside Footy, because I'm on a march to 1,000. And of course, there is going to be a giveaway for that 1,000th subscriber, man. And I got a sweet gift to give away for that one lucky subscriber. So that's going to do it for us, man. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoy your Saturday afternoon, but more importantly, tomorrow's Father's Day, right? So I want you guys to do yourselves a favor and if you can go to your dad's house, go out there and give him a hug. But if you're away from your dad, make sure that you give him a call and let him know how much you've been thinking about him. More than ever, fathers have to be recognized, and fathers have to, this day is for them as well too. I know that I got 3 sons myself, and I'm sure I'm going to be hearing from them tomorrow as well too. So make sure that you give your dad a call and let him know how much you love him and how much you care about him, and enjoy the day with him if you can. You guys have a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern for the Club World Cup live stream. Have a great day, guys.
Rusted goalposts under